The BDS stands for Boycott, Divestment, and Sanctions. Now, it's a movement that was started in 2005. It's an organizational movement. It's a cause. And what it is, the goal is to, it's a Palestinian campaign promoting various forms of boycott against Israel until it meets with the campaign, or it meets what the campaign describes as Israel's obligations under international law. So these people have a grievance. It's defined as the withdrawal from the occupied territories, removal of the separation barrier in the West Bank, full equality for Arab Palestinian citizens of Israel, and respecting, protecting, and promoting the rights of Palestinian refugees to return to their homes and their properties. The campaign is organized and coordinated by the Palestinian BDS National Committee. But you can always go to bdsmovement.net. They have a website. Okay, so then you go to the website and get full information there. BDS supporters compare the movement to the 20th century anti-apartheid movement in South Africa. They call this an apartheid in Israel. It's important to note that Israel doesn't see it that way at all. They don't see this as apartheid. In fact, they see themselves as a victim, asserting that in Israel, outside of the West Bank, Jews and Arabs mix freely and increasingly live in the same neighborhoods. There is no imposed segregation. Critics have also argued that the BDS movement is anti-Semitic. In the form its opposition to Zionism takes. So they believe to just be hold conditions of having to meet regarding these issues in itself anti-Semitic, because it's against them. Drawing analogies to the Nazi boycott of Jewish businesses and accusing it of promoting the delegitimization of Israel. Okay, that I think is a cursory understanding where we can kind of have a conversation without being totally illiterate of what's going on. These people want something. These people don't want to give them the thing they want. So, Tim, what does that have to do with the United States? It's not going on in the United States. Why are we having meetings about how people, what is HR, Tim, please tell me, what is HR246, the resolution for the House? I find it amazing that we're getting hung up on the language of resolution and bills. I just want to point that out. That's when we know you need to step away from the mic and calm down. People get pissed off. This is not a bill, it's a resolution. Well, you weren't saying that when we're talking about when people were jumping up and down because they signed a HR 40 resolution. That didn't do anything else other than, HR 40 resolution to just take a look at reparations and what that would look like and kind of get a panel together to consider it. People signed it. It's just a resolution. It's nothing, right? Come on, man. You don't have to be both ways, both times out. That's why I love being me. I love it because we're going to get to the bottom of this. Now listen, the HR 246 is opposing efforts to delegitimize the state of Israel, global boycott. I'm reading from the resolution itself that was voted in favor of by 398 to 17. A bipartisan group of Congress people got together and voted to support this. And here's the language. The text of the HR Resolution 246 of the 116 Congress opposing efforts to delegitimize the state of Israel and the global boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement targeting Israel. The Democratic Jewish State of Israel is a key ally and strategic partner of the U.S., whereas since Israel's founding in 1948, Congress has repeatedly expressed our nation's unwavering commitment to the security of Israel as a Jewish and democratic state. Whereas it's a hallmark of American democracy for citizens to petition the United States government in favor of or against United States foreign policy. Whereas the United States Constitution protects the rights of the United States citizens to articulate political views, including the respect to the policies of the United States or foreign governments. Whereas American policy has long sought to bring peace to the Middle East and recognize both the Israel and the Palestinian people should be able to live in safe and sovereign states, free from fear and violence, with mutual recognition. So the American standpoint, based on this resolution, is that we want a two-state solution, which would mean Palestinians do your thing, Palestinians, and Israel, do your thing, baby. Just do your thing. Okay. So, Tim, where's it get to the global boycott? Let's get to that part. Whereas the global boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement targeting Israel is a campaign that does not favor a two-state solution and that seeks to exclude the state of Israel and the Israeli people from the economic, cultural, and academic life of the rest of the world. Whereas the global boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement is one of the several recent political movements that undermines the possibility for a negotiated solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict by demanding concessions of one party and encouraging the Palestinians to reject negotiations in favor of international pressure. The global BDS movement targets not only the Israeli government, but also Israeli academic, cultural, and civil society institutions, as well as individual Israeli citizens of all political persuasions, religions, ethnicities, and in some cases even Jews of other nationalities who support Israel. This resolution is anti-BDS. It's against BDS. It's against the boycott and divestment and the sanctions that this organization is hoping to apply to force Israel to come to the table and make concessions for the Palestinian people. That's what this is. Now, I think that's pretty close to where we need to be. I'm sure there's a conversation in my comment section right now about it where people are articulating their viewpoints on it, which is great because that's what the Wolfpack is all about. All right? I just say keep it respectful, y'all. Don't get me shut down because you're pissed off, okay? They're always watching. They're always watching. So be respectful as we have these conversations. Progressive accept Palestine. That's what the charge is being laid out. Now, before I move on to that part, I want to share with you Rashida Tlaib, one of the first Muslim American woman in Congress, I do believe. She was there just before Omar, right? She made a plea. She made statements on the House floor.
The granddaughter of Palestinian grandmother, my city, who yearns to experience equality, human dignity, and freedom. I stand before you, the daughter of Palestinian immigrants, parents who experience being stripped of their human rights, the right to freedom of travel, equal treatment. So I can't stand by and watch this attack on our freedom of speech and the right to boycott the racist policies of the government and the state of Israel. I love our country's freedom of speech, Madam Speaker. Dissent is how we nurture democracy and grow to be better and more humane and just. And this is why I oppose Resolution 243. All Americans have a right, a constitutional right, guaranteed by the First Amendment to freedom of speech, to petition their government and to participate in boycotts. Speech in pursuit of civil and human rights at home and abroad is protected by our First Amendment. That is one reason why our First Amendment is so powerful. With a few exceptions, the government is simply not allowed to discriminate against speech based on its viewpoint or its speaker. The right to boycott is deeply rooted in the fabric of our country. What was the Boston Tea Party but a boycott? Where would we be now without the boycott led by civil rights activists in the 1950s and 60s, like the Montgomery bus boycott and the United Farm Workers grape boycott? Some of this country's most important advances in racial equality and equity and workers' rights has been achieved through collective action protected by our Constitution. Americans of conscience have long and proud history of participating in boycotts, specifically to advocate for human rights abroad. Americans boycotted Nazi Germany in response to dehumanization, imprisonment, and genocide of Jewish people. In the 1980s, many of us in this very body boycotted South African goods in the fight against apartheid. Our right to free speech is being threatened with this resolution. It sets a dangerous precedent because it attempts to delegitimize a certain people's political speech and to send a message that our government can and will take action against speech it doesn't like. Madam Speaker, the Supreme Court has time and time again recognized that expressive conduct is protected by the Constitution. From burning a flag to baking a cake, efforts to restrict and target that protected speech run the risk of eroding the civil rights that form the foundation of our democracy. All Americans have the right to participate in boycotts, and I oppose all legislative efforts that target speech. I urge Congress, state governments, and civil rights leaders from all communities to preserve our Constitution, preserve our Bill of Rights, and preserve the First Amendment's guarantee of freedom of speech by opposing HR246 and the anti-boycott efforts wherever they rise. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
That was the spirited speech by Rashida Tlaib in order to trying to express and impress upon fellow House members the importance of voting against this resolution. She felt very, very strongly about the need for freedom of speech. I'd like to underscore there are people making light of this resolution. It was not a light thing. This is serious business. This is important. Rashida laid out her story from a personal vantage point of what she experienced, what her people in her family have experienced, and how important this is for people to be able to push back against the Israelis' treatment of Palestinians. Now, this has caused a lot of an uproar in some liberal circles because a number of, obviously was, regardless to what Rashida said there on the floor, the vote was, extremely, overwhelmingly in support of this resolution. And a couple of people voted for it that we wouldn't have expected to vote for it. Khanna voted for it. Khanna considered a progressive in a lot of ways, but there are things that Khanna has done that people have questioned. Well, this is one of them. Ayanna Pressley broke from the squad, as it's been called, a combination of AOC, Rashida Tlaib, and Ilhan Omar, and was the only one from the squad to break and say, I'm supporting this resolution. And also Tulsi Gabbard voted. She voted with this resolution against the BDS movement. Some people, once again, are minimizing the effect of this resolution, saying, oh, there's a lot of things in this resolution. Well, there's definitely a victor in this resolution. Benjamin Netanyahu, hard right prime minister, Israel. Well, some call him extremist. He wrote this on Twitter. He said, I would like to commend the U.S. House of Representatives for overwhelmingly approving by a great bipartisan majority, Democrats and Republicans alike, a decision against boycotts against Israel. Netanyahu, who has dismissed the possibility of a Palestinian state, a prerequisite for any peace deal, tweeted that on Wednesday. They don't want to give Palestinians their own anything. He doesn't want to. Okay, so that's very clear that he felt this was a win. He thanked them. One of the things we can be damn sure of, guys, is that whenever you got Democrats and Republicans in unison on an issue, then very rarely is that going to be an issue that helps us. If it's an issue that helps us, there's only going to be a few Republicans that join in on it. So whenever you see larger groups of people agreeing, I always get worried, because those are very rarely things that help people who are not of the 1% or help marginalized people at all. That's the first thing. Second thing is this. The BDS movement is a nonviolent movement. It's using leverage of money to try to force people to the table. How could you be against a nonviolent movement? How could you be against people deciding what to do with their voices or to do with their dollars and where they spend them? To me, I think it's plain and simple that Khanna, bad vote, Ro. Ayanna Pressley, bad vote. Ayanna. Tulsi Gabbard, bad vote, Tulsi Gabbard. You got to be able to call this stuff out. What are you guys afraid of? Being critical of your leaders is the first step towards a better union, a first step towards actually creating leaders that you can support wholeheartedly, not ones you have to hold your nose to. And if we, the most outspoken, most energized leg of the political parties, we start to kowtow or buckle or tap dance in any way for our leaders, then we are unhelpful and we're not going the direction we need to go. This is our job, to stand up. We're supposed to influence the leaders. The leaders are not supposed to influence us. We're supposed to push them in the direction we want them to go. Now, unless you sincerely feel that the Palestinians do not deserve to have their own place and the ability to move freely, the ability to be unencumbered, the ability to live in their own homes without them being demolished, sometimes while they sleep. Unless you feel that that is fine with you, literally, like I'm sure there's got to be some people that think, screw the Palestinians. They throwing rocks, these people are shooting bullets, but hey, I'm with the, why were you there to get shot? You shouldn't be throwing a rock, so you deserve to die. And these are the same type of people that feel that same way about a kid with a pocket knife in a D.C. street or a Philadelphia street or a Texas, somewhere in Texas. They support the authority, not the people that are being, not the people without the power. They support the people with the power. But I'm sure there's some people that do that. But unless you're one of those people, I don't understand how you can feel any other way about this. I understand there's immense pressure in Washington, D.C. There's immense pressure in Congress to vote in support of limiting free speech, particularly when it comes to anything that could be deemed, even though you have to bend yourself into a pretzel-like structure in order to make critique of a governing body be a critique of every individual who happens to be of that religion. I think that's total garbage, and I think we all know it's total garbage. I think we're all pretty much aware of the lies that are being told in order to shut people up and to scare them into silence. But I will not be scared into silence. And if you intend to be a leader of the people, then you cannot be scared into silence. You don't get to choose which issues you want to stand up for. You should stand up for all the issues that are important. This is a no-brainer for those who consider themselves either progressive or a fighter for marginalized people. This is basic. They got bullets and guns, and they are taking land. They are treating these people like not even second-class citizens, like third- and fourth-class citizens. People say this reminds them a lot about apartheid in South Africa, but way worse. I'm seeing a bad trend lately where people make excuses for horrible statements that are made. People making excuses for people who want to make identity politics anything that has to do with race. They want to minimize, they want to compare chattel slavery to indentured servitude. What a straight face. Even say that slavery in the United States wasn't even about race, it was about money. Then you have to go a long way to get to that point. Because when I see the lynching pictures, when I see the word, the N-word scraped, carved into people's bodies, they weren't saying poor. It started with an N. So we're going too far. And don't support the garbage, man. Don't make me have to call out names. I don't need to. We know who we're talking about. The point is this. You're either going to support the marginalized people or you not. That's it. It's not complex. It's tough, Tim. They might face backlash. They don't want to die on that hill. That's a decision. And if you lose votes for it, own it. You don't want to hear Tim Black. You think Tim Black's wrong to bring it up? They were wrong to do it, in my opinion. I own my voice. I own what I say. They own their actions. As I tell all of them, from Pete Buttigieg to Kamala Harris to Cory Booker to Elizabeth Warren to Joe Biden. Once it becomes part of the record, you own it. Yeah, run on it. And if you cannot run on it, maybe you shouldn't have made the record is what it is. So there you go. Now, the obvious question is, as we wrap this up, the obvious question is, Tim, will you support a candidate who voted against the BDS movement? Will you support a candidate that wants to nullify voices, want to shut down the conversation discourse, that want to take away our freedom of expression, a freedom of what we do with our money, a freedom to boycott? Tim, will you support someone like that? And I say, that's a decision I'll have to make, and that's a decision you'll have to make. How important is it to you? I think it's damn important. Is it irredeemable? I think as we move, especially as it pertains to this election moving forward, and let's just keep it real, especially we're talking about Tulsi Gabbard, man. So are people going to throw Tulsi Gabbard under the bus on this one? Let's look at the totality of what she's done. Let's look at not just this. Now, I don't agree with those people that say, well, this person voted and this person did this thing. We're talking about her right now. She want to be commander-in-chief, dog. We're talking about her right now. Let's not compare her to 5, 10 other people to take the spotlight off. You sound like lesser to evil stuff that I hated with Clinton. I love you, but don't do it. It's wrong. Don't do it. You don't need to do it. A person is not one vote that they made. I'm not against Joe Biden because of one thing. I'm not against Joe Biden just because of the boycott, the segregation thing. He did a lot of stuff, from the crime bill to a part of an administration that dropped bombs and drones, that took away our rights, that paid lip service to inequities in our society, and then buckled on Medicare, buckled on a single-payer system. I mean, he did a lot of things. They bailed out back. There's a lot. It's not just one issue with Joe Biden that gives me the heebie-jeebies and makes my stomach twist and turn. Barf bag, barf bag. But there's also more than one reason why I support somebody like a Bernie Sanders. So I don't think, and I'm being real with you, I have nothing to gain here. I have nothing at all to gain. I'm going to tell you like this. If you're just trying to decide if Tulsi Gabbard is worthy of your vote or your support or your donations based on this one vote, I think it's unfair only because she's more than just one vote. She's more than just one decision. Now, if after looking you decide that there's too many of them, well, just like in many other things, you'll have to make a decision. I think that is as fair an analysis that you could ever get. And I think you should apply it, not just to Tulsi Gabbard, you should apply it to all, or whoever your favorite candidate is. I apply it in all manners of my life. There you go. All right. This is just the beginning. I'm sure this conversation will continue at some point. I give it to you real raw here. You are members of the Tim Black Wolfpack. If you are not, please join us. $5 a month. Become a member. I'll send you a Wolfpack pack. That's right, guys. I got a Wolfpack pack that I'm sending to everyone who gives at least $5 a month. Because I want to give you something physical in the real world that you can use, that you can, hey, yeah, I got this from Tim Black. Hey, he signed it. I want something real for the people. So become a member if you think that, hey, I take chances and I shoot straight, not a bunch of hedging. I heard somebody talking about this today. Goodness gracious, man. Could you choose something? Say something of importance. You talk for 25 minutes. Well, it felt like 25 if it wasn't 25. And after listening, I had no idea how you felt at all. Good gracious. What are you doing? I couldn't listen that long, man. You're lucky I was busy doing some stuff trying to clean up around the house. I had this thing running on Bluetooth. Goodness gracious. Where's my phone so I cut this off, man? People scared to say anything. Just talk, just yipping and yapping, scared to take a position on anything. All right, so let's go to the next story. All right, next story.